Throughout the years, Konami's released a myriad of different skills for a variety of different characters. But the thing is, not every single one of those characters actually ended up getting a fully fledged deck from Konami. And that's really weird because a lot of these characters actually got enough support in order to make them a bona fide strategy. Characters that come to mind include the likes of Bandit Keith, Bond, hell, even Chumley has enough to make him a deck. So that got me thinking, what would it look like if Konami actually ended up making all these characters a bona fide strategy in speed duels? And that's exactly what we're trying to explore in this series of mine. So essentially the gist of it all is that I'm going to be taking every single character that has a skill in speed duels but doesn't actually have a bona fide strategy actually built in a speed duel box and or a starter deck. And I'm going to try and build a strategy based around what skills they have available to them. But the catch is, the deck that I built for these characters can only include cards included in speed duels. Additionally, it has to make sense with the character in mind. That means that a character like Bandit Keith shouldn't be playing a card like Jinzo in his deck just because it wasn't a card that was like related to him in the anime, if that makes sense. And finally, the deck I built for these characters should also make sense with the skill in mind as well. But now that we have our restrictions set in place, I would like to ask you guys that if you do end up enjoying today's video, then I would really appreciate if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way of supporting me and I greatly appreciate it. But enough rambling on my side, let's hop on to Dueling Book now. Alright guys, so here we are once again, and man, I cannot express just how excited I am about doing today's video. Just because the Sarcophagus deck is one of my all-time favorite, like, bad decks in speed duels. There's just something about this shitty little deck that I can't get enough of, and I've built it so many different ways. I've done so many different things with this deck that, you know what, I'm actually pretty happy with the way this version of the deck ended up coming out, and genuinely, this was one of the hardest decks for me to build because of just how many different options I have available to me. And I am so excited to share all that with you. But before we do get started with that, let's go ahead and talk about the actual skill first so we get an idea what the deck is trying to do and why I made the choices that I did with this deck. Alright then, so the skill in question here is Ancient Ruler Rises, which reads, apply the following skills. Once per turn, you can send one level 2 zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard and place one of the first sarcophagus, second sarcophagus, or the third sarcophagus from your deck or graveyard, or that is banished based up in your spell and trap card zone. This is treated as being placed by the effect of the first sarcophagus. Second effect, each Spirit of the Pharaoh you control gains attack equal to the total number of Pharaoh Servant and Pharaonic Protectors on your field and in your graveyard times 900. Overall, this is a really well designed skill for a really bad deck, and that's like some of my favorite lineup of skills in speed duels. It's just, I love whenever Konami does that. Alright then, so let's actually talk about the deck in itself. Starting off with the monster lineup, I went ahead and did 2 copies of Pharaoh Servant and 2 copies of Pharaonic Protector. Just for the very fact that you need quite a few of these guys in order to get access to all your sarcophagus cards. Also, it is a nice thing, the fact that having the leeway of, if they get outed, being able to send more from your deck to the graveyard in order to recover them from wherever they were removed from. So, I feel like if Konami were to have built this deck for speed duels as a real deck, they would have done the same thing as well. Of course, we have the boss monster of the deck, Spirit of the Pharaoh. No more needs to be said about that. Onto the more interesting choices that I made for the character. I went ahead and added Spear Reaper, Deslakuta, Regenerating Mummy, and Ryokoki to this deck for a few reasons. Spear Reaper is here just because the deck does struggle to survive just because of how slow it is, even though it has a really good skill. It is pretty slow though, so having a monster that can protect you for multiple turns, it's kind of nice. Deslakuta, Regenerating Mummy, and Ryokoki kind of just all fit this whole like ancient Egypt, like pharaohs vibe going on right here. And that's one of the themes that I went with when constructing the deck, just because Konami does that a lot. Whenever they give a character a deck, they kind of theme it around their aesthetic, them as a character, etc, etc, and that's what I did with him. Onto the spell cards now, I went ahead and gave them Book of Life and Book of Tayu for the same reason that I gave them like Deslakuta and Ryokoki. They have like that ancient Egypt vibe, and they're 2 cards that actually help the deck quite a bit. Defensive, and then we have a zombie oriented card. They seem like perfect fits. The Different Dimension Capsule, I feel like this card, because we are dealing with a pharaoh, is a good addition as well. We have Order to Charge because we have so many vanillas in the deck. We have the second sarcophagus and the third sarcophagus because we have to. Now onto the trap cards, we have Jar of Avarice. Now, I think this card is actually a really cool addition to this deck for a few reasons. One, it has like that whole riches going on with it because it's all blinged out. So you could definitely imagine this being like in the tomb of a pharaoh. But also, it's a great longevity card because you go through your deck really quickly with this skill. It's a great way of recovering a lot of the important things you need in your deck, like all your vanillas. so I love the addition of this card in this deck. We have Judgment of Anubis as a way to protect your sarcophagus guards. Now, I know that this card doesn't work that well for this because your backfield does get clogged quite easily, but I feel like Konami would have thrown this in there anyway, just because that's a Konami move to do. Continuing on, we have Order to Smash. Again, same idea as Order to Charge, because we have so many vanilla monsters, and at that, they're low-level vanilla monsters, so they fit really, really well in here as well. Wrapping up, we have Pharaoh's Treasure, because we have the Spirit of the Pharaoh. So this would have been a classic Konami move if they added this to a actual deck. Tell me, do you think I'm right? Like, do you think Konami would have added this just for the sake that it has Pharaoh in the name? I hate this card. I don't think it's a good card, but I feel like it's a Konami move nevertheless. And finally, the first sarcophagus, because it's the card that gets everything going. And yeah, that's my take on what a deck made by Konami would look like for Abidos. And I actually like it a lot. I think it's really cool, really cute, and it's quite enjoyable to play. I've tried it out a few times. Not the best thing you'll be playing out there, but nevertheless, still fun. Now, what I'm most excited to talk to you guys about is changes that I would personally make. Or substitutes that you could add into this deck as well. And some of my ideas were Guardian Sphinx is a cool idea as well. Again, we're still dealing with ancient Egypt. It's a better tribute monster for the deck, specifically over Ryokoki. Gravekeeper's Guard, again, same thing, great flip monster, but since it is part of the Gravekeeper strategy, I don't know if Konami would have gone ahead and gone with it. As for spell and trap cards, we have Double Cyclone, Spiritualism, Tribute of the Doom, and Foolish Burial. I feel like all these cards fit the deck really, really well. One thing in particular that I like a lot is the fact that Double Cyclone is deceptively really good in this deck, because even after you summon Spirit of the Pharaoh to your field, you can continue activating the skill to get access to these spell cards, meaning that technically you have infinite tribute fodder for Double Cyclone if you wanted to play it in this deck. And I think that's like a really cool interaction. Onto the trap cards, we have cards like Curse of Aging, Ordeal of a Traveler, Curse of Anubis, and finally Toon Mask. Again, all these cards fit the aesthetic of the deck and would be better additions over cards like Pharaoh's Treasure. But again, guys, give me all your thoughts in the comment section below. Share with me if you have a similar take to mine, and or what changes you would personally make to the deck that I ended up constructing. But as usual, guys, if you did enjoy today's video, then I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate it. And of course, I do hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.